All right, guys, touching on the top props here for the Thursday night football game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. Just starting out with a game preview for this game. That's funny. I was saying the 7-point spread that we were getting in this game seemed to be strange. I said it on the DFS video. Now down to 6.5. We will see. Game over and under is set at 49, which is kind of high, I would say, for this game. Granted, both offenses are pretty high powered, so not too shocking, I guess. Looking at the injury situation for this game, Kenneth Gainwell is the biggest question mark that we have. Besides that, the teams are kind of healthy in terms of like significant producers for what we're looking for. And then while we're on OddsJam right now, let's just take a peek at that game specifically. And I actually don't mind this receiving prop combo that we're getting here with TJ Hawkinson and Dallas Goedert. That's an interesting one. Both had lower yardages than you would think last week. Goedert obviously didn't have any. Hawkinson had a ton of receptions, but a lack of yards. And I would say, there's some correlation there. This one I find to be interesting. I do think Alexander Mattison is going to have a tougher time rushing the football against the Eagles. But at the same time, I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a better day rushing the football against the Vikings. Jalen Hurts last week only had 37 rushing yards on 9 attempts. The New England defense was able to keep Jalen Hurts kind of in check, and I kind of came to the conclusion that it was kind of their hybrid players that were able to kind of get out in space and kind of shut in quotation marks Jalen Hurts down a little bit. I don't see Minnesota really having those players to be able to do that. If they choose to attack Minnesota with Jalen Hurts' rushing ability, like if he gets 9 rushing attempts again, I don't really like that rushing combo too much. And then, just looking at it right now, guys, just for that game, this is going to be on my 9-to-5 cheat sheet here now. Dallas Goedert, over receiving yards, we did see that popping there on the OddsJam optimizer as well. Like to see that consistency there. This is going to be percent edge, so pretty good edge there. Jalen Hurts for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Not exactly that 54% likelihood that we want, but still not a terrible one. TJ Hawkinson, hopefully you guys were able to get to that 4.5 receptions from yesterday's Taco Tuesday video. That has since been bumped to 5. So gained a big edge there, seemingly. Now it's kind of being valued as a push, but still about a 53.4% chance for him to get the over of 5 receptions. And I would say I think he has a good chance to do that as well. Just Kirk Cousins loves him. What I found interesting here was this one, where the sportsbooks are favoring the under at 4.5 here. The 9-to-5 data tag, though, however, with it being a 4-point prop line, slightly favoring the over there. Don't love that too much. Also, one that I don't love too much is this one right here. We can see across the board for Kirk Cousins passing yards, there is not an edge, right? It's basically a 50-50 chance. You look at the projection data, 260. They get PrizePicks line, 262. They'll get underdog line, 259. Vegas 260.5. Like no edge. And that is kind of the theme. I will say, if we are doing any sort of bets on this game, I do think we have a potential for maybe some little bit of stacking opportunity. And that's going to be kind of what I like to defer to when we get these single game type games, is I really just want to bet on how the game is going to go. Now, unfortunately, that has not really worked out thus far for these little showdown, Thursday night football, Monday night football, Sunday night football games, because there's been weird stuff happening. Aaron Rodgers getting injured. That threw off kind of the whole dynamic of the game. You look at, obviously, the Sunday night football game, 2 defensive touchdowns, throws off the whole dynamic of the game. And then also Thursday night football, a pick 6 as well. Like, it's just been strange. I just want a game to not have as much fluky stuff. That's what we're hoping for with this. But I do think that this Minnesota Vikings defense, sure, it's shut down Baker Mayfield, if you will, passing for less than 200 yards. But I think that there's a good chance for both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith to have a big game. And I would rather go with Devonta Smith for over passing yards, just given the fact that it's a lower number, but both of them have a good chance to get the over there. And I will say Justin Jefferson did struggle against the Eagles last year in week 2. That was basically his only bad game. I shouldn't say basically, he did tail off at the end of the season last year, but early on in the season, the Eagles did kind of shut him down. And I do just want to pull up kind of this preview from the Minnesota Vikings NFL DFS segment that I did on a different video. TJ Hawkinson was targeted a bunch, so I think that's why the receptions one, both went up from 4.5, but 5 still might be a little bit too low. I really want us to get a prop on KJ Osborne. He played 66% of his 92 snaps out of the slot. You look at where the Eagles struggled last week. Kendrick Bourne had a pretty good game when he was running out of the slot. Demario Douglas had 4 receptions for 40 yards out of the slot. Juju, a little bit of production out of the slot. KJ Osborne, if he's going to be running those routes again out of the slot, he is a very interesting play. And what's annoying is that we are not getting any props on him, probably because they feel like that leaves them a little bit too open. All the sports would have that feeling. Now, one play that I don't mind would actually be Alexander Mattison for over 15.5 receiving yards. This number has been fluctuating a lot since the lines came out. And so just kind of looking at how the game is going to go, where, Minnesota is like 6.5 point dogs. They might be throwing a little bit more, playing from behind a little bit more. That could lead to a few more opportunities for Madison to get some dump offs to take for 7 yard, 8 yard, 2 yard, whatever. We need him to get probably 3 receptions though to get this over. Game flow wise, you could bet on. I almost don't hate this prop as well. Actually, I've done pretty well with the kicking based props so far. Fingers crossed that continues. If the Vikings defense is not terrible like last week, they weren't bad as you would think, then maybe this is a number that hit. Wouldn't be too crazy to see. Maybe the Eagles have 2 drives that stall out and they end up with 2 field goals. Passing TDs, we are seeing that this is going to be the best bet that we have available on the slate. And so there is kind of a weird stacking opportunity there as well. We could do over passing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. Obviously gets a good matchup against the Vikings. And then I actually wouldn't mind the idea of maybe doing, AJ Brown or Devonta Smith as a stack for over receiving yards as well. I think both of those together makes sense. Then on the flip side of that, if Jalen Hurts does get 2 passing touchdowns, I would say that increases the likelihood of Minnesota playing from behind, thus the likelihood for Madison to be able to get a few more dump offs or just be on the field a little bit more in passing down situations increase. And I'm actually curious as to your guys' opinion on this. Which one of these is standing out to you guys the most for a rush plus receiving combo? We just need to get one of these players to get a touchdown. To me, it's this one. This one stands out. Dallas Goedert, I would say. Yeah, I think he's just going to have kind of the reverse game where because he wasn't featured all last game, might as well, force feeding the ball a little bit in this game. And then we got Devonta Smith as well. This very much coincides with Jalen Hurts' 1.5 passing touchdowns. We only need one of those players to get a reception. Jalen Hurts has about a 54% chance to get 1.5 passing touchdowns. One of these two would need to be a culprit in that. One thing that I do find kind of interesting as well is that Madison really didn't get that many rushing attempts. We saw Kirk Cousins actually pass the ball for 44 times in that game, last game against the Bucs. Defensively, I would say maybe a similar-ish matchup. And so this number, especially if they are going to be playing from behind for 37.5 passing attempts, might feel a little bit too low. And for what it's worth, what they did against Philadelphia in the previous game, it was week 2 last year, 46 passing attempts. Again, a slight kind of narrative thing there as well. I don't mind that. We are trying to predict how the game's going to go and make our bet slips based off of that. And for what it's worth, guys, I do think Cousins had a bunch of passes that were questionable. They're kind of confidence throws, to be honest with you, but they could have been picked off if the defender honestly probably wasn't worried about the talent behind them, whether it's Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, or TJ Hawkinson. It's kind of the nice part about having talented weapons is that the defenders are a little bit more keen on their defensive attention on them rather than, maybe flipping their hips when a pass is thrown. All right, so I feel like we have a pretty good idea of what we want to be doing. So let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day. Now, I need to do the bet slip like this because PrizePicks will not allow us to double dip these two. Okay, so it really depends on how many bets you're making and kind of your bet slips and whatnot. And they also won't allow this because you can't have the same player on it twice. So it's really for you guys to decide how you want to go about navigating your betting slip. These are the ones I like for the Eagles. Okay, and so in simple, you could just do these two together, these two bets, and then pair them up with the Minnesota Vikings props that we like, but we like because they should correlate well with the game script. And guys, I want to re-echo this. I don't like trying to predict game scripts, but obviously on these single game games, that's kind of what we need to do. We find the best EV bets and then we see how the game's going to go, and we make our best educated decisions we can possible to make a bet that logically makes sense. And then for what it's worth, this is the other kind of way you could go about using that Philadelphia good bets that would correlate with the ones that we already had made as well. Now, for what it's worth, do want to make it clear that, Kirk Cousins currently projected to get under the 37.5 passing attempts. That is very much a bet that we would be making to bet on the game script. If you guys don't like that bet, I wouldn't blame you, okay? If this was like a main slate, I wouldn't be telling you guys or even suggesting a bet like that. And then kind of same thing here with Madison as well. Like, yes, he's projected to get 20.5 for receiving yards. We look at Vegas, they're saying the over at 14.5 yards, but then because the line is 15.5 on PrizePicks currently, the 9-to-5 tag is telling us to bet the under. Okay, I just want to make that clear that individually those two bets are pretty bad. Okay, and obviously we would want to be resorting to the best EV bets that we have available on the day, typically always. But when it's a showdown slate, we do not have that ability to do so. And then lastly here, real quick as well, like AJ Brown under receptions is kind of one that's popping as well. And then lastly, just to make it clear, these are the two best EV bets that we currently have available. Expected value bet. When we play those type of bets in the long term, those are going to pay off. But guys, that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you guys want access to the PrizePicks cheat sheet that you saw available on my website, that's going to be available for just $10 a month. If you guys want access to that odds jam optimizer as well, link to that's in the description below. Use the promo code the numbers 925 to get 25% off your membership there as well. That's going to be all for today's video. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.